Why don't angels just appear to everyone? Have you ever asked for a visitation? Have you ever been like, yo, Jesus, come down here, like, give me a high five, or ask an angel to appear, something like that? That's been the story of my life, up until the age of 33. I was always like, just give me a little something, man. Like, show me something, right? And cricket, cricket, like, didn't hear shit, right? And it wasn't until, I tried to exit this reality that Archangel Michael appeared. And after that, it opened up the floodgates. Started getting visitations from Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael, Metatron, and, the soul of Jesus a couple times. And the very first video that I put out on TikTok was called Do You Believe in Angels? You can check it out. It's pinned on my profile. It's sitting at like 140,000 views. And one of the main questions that I got from that video was, why do angels only appear to some people and not others, this and that. And I wanted to talk about why angels don't just appear, every day as soon as you ask, kind of thing. Now, I don't want to sound ungrateful for all my visitations. If you're new to my channel, in 2014, I tried to exit this reality, and that's when Archangel Michael appeared. And then in 2015, I had another visitation from Archangel Michael where he appeared to me and folded his wings, and this Christ consciousness just hit me to the point where my chest fell into my lap and I couldn't move. I was in ecstasy. I've had multiple visitations from the soul of Jesus, one where I was up in the shower and just this unbelievable wave of like unconditional love just, flooded my body. And as amazing as it is and as beautiful as those experiences are, there actually is a downside to having all these amazing experiences. Now, how could there be a negative to that, you're asking? Well, the reason why I believe that angels don't just appear all the time is because it actually pulls you out of this reality. It makes it very hard to be grounded when you're getting visitations from the soul of Jesus. It was hard for me to be human for 2 weeks afterwards. I was just like, how do I blend in and relate to this reality after an experience like that? And one thing that I also noticed, it's like, have you ever gone to the bar and had one beer or one glass of wine? Very rarely, right? And that's kind of what happens. The amount of ecstasy you feel, the amount of love that you feel, it's almost like a drug. And it's the most amazing drug you've ever had in your entire life. And once it goes away, you're like, where'd my drug go? You can't go down to the corner store and be like, give me, one visitation from the soul of Jesus and one visitation from Archangel Michael. The amount of love that comes with a visitation from Jesus and even Archangel Michael, Archangel Michael folded his wings 3 times, and each time my chest just boom in my lap. So much love flowing through my body that I couldn't even move. I was down on my lap, and when I got up, it happened again, boom, down on my lap 3 times in a row, right? And so what happens is it's very hard to relate, and our goal down here is to focus on our earthly missions. And if we're constantly projecting our thoughts and all that shit, thinking about angels, and not only that, when I had a visitation from the soul of Jesus on October 20th, 2020, what happened is just the amount of love that comes over you, it just erases any, dense shit you got going on. And I started to remember past lives. And, for a long time, it was very hard for me to get grounded again, because imagine you live your whole entire life in a bucket full of dog poo. And that's all you realize it kind of stinks a little bit, but you're like, oh, whatever, you make some sandcastles out of dog poo, and you build your house out of dog poo, and you just think everything's dog poo, right? Well, after my visitation from the soul of Jesus, I started remembering past lives, like, free energy, where the vibration of the planet's so high, it's like you're walking around on mushrooms the whole time. There's no such thing as paying for insurance or gas or paying to live. It's more like an all-inclusive Mexican vacation. There's no disease because there's no hidden technologies and all that stuff. It's just a fabulous life, right? And when I realized all this, and then I didn't have that amazing feeling of all that energy that came with the visitations. It was like, the fuck am I doing here, bro? Like, where am I? What the fuck's this all about? Why'd I come here? It really makes you ungrounded. And if people all around the world were just like, Jesus, come hang out, and he came to you, first of all, you drop to your knees and start crying because the amount of love is so amazing. The very first time the energy of Jesus touched me, I was actually back in the day when I was still making sculptures. I said to Jesus, because I was always like, hey, Jesus, I used to make these crystal trees, right? I was like, place some energy that's most beneficial for, the beholder into this tree. And I would do that all the time. And then one day I was like, Jesus, it'd really be nice to just like have a sign that you're hearing me and actually doing this. And it was like I felt this fucking drop come into my crown chakra, this energy of Jesus. And I just sat there with my hand on my chin on the table, and I had tears streaming down my face for like 45 minutes. I couldn't even move. And, it's pretty darn intense. But now, when I make my custom crystal jewelry, I ask Jesus and the angels to pump it up for you guys. If you'd like to check it out, you can hit that link. You'll see my website. You just hit that. It'll take you straight to my store. You can do some shopping. Got grounding mats and a whole bunch of different things to choose from. But, with the crystals, I get the boys upstairs to pump them up for you guys. But that's the reason why I feel that angels don't just appear to everybody, or Jesus doesn't just come hang out with you on a daily basis, because we got things to do down here on planet Earth. If we're always focused on the exterior up there, and we are going through Jesus withdrawal, that energy, I miss it. 2 weeks after that visitation, I was just walking around laughing for no reason, because just the amount of love that was in my heart was just unbelievable. So if you're asking for, a visitation and you're not getting it, it doesn't mean that they don't hear you. Trust me, they hear you. It's just that, that's the reason why they're not always appearing. Hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.